many cool players in our challenge. Christian Pulisic is coming up tomorrow. But now, round 14 just started. Praggnanandhaa, he needs points to qualify for the knockout stage, facing Jorden van Foreest, who has been on fire. I think he's won 4 out of the 5 previous games. So this will be a tough one for Praggnanandhaa.
Yeah, it might be a tough one for Praggnanandhaa, but he's capable. He has beaten many of the world's top players, and he's got white. And look at the speed with which he's been playing so far. It's only move 9. White has just castled the king on move 9, but Praggnanandha's got more time than he started with. He's up to 16 minutes and castling the white king here. This is still a very well-known position. It's a variation of what we call the Grunfeld defence. If you want to know more about that, go to Chessable, check out Peter Svidler's course. Peter Svidler, the world's leading expert on the Grunfeld, and I'm pretty sure these two players have studied that course because, yeah, I mean, every top player, any professional player who wants to delve into this opening needs to check it out. And meanwhile, Van Foreest just does capture a pawn. White normally occupies the centre with pawns in the Grunfeld defence, but Black, meanwhile, tries to chip away at that centre from afar using pieces, and that's exactly what Van Foreest has done. And, OK, White's central pawn was under fire. It stepped forward, attacking the Black Knight, and the Black Knight now on the edge of the board. Black's Knight, normally we say don't go to the side, Knights on the rim are dim, but it can capture a bishop at any opportunity or can re-centralise itself, so it's OK.
All right.
And White's pawn push, stopping the Black light squared bishop coming up.
And funnily enough, I was looking at this position and I was thinking, yeah, hang on a second, it's not just the Grunfeld, is it? It's actually, you can get this type of position in an opening that I love, which is the Caro-Kann, and also via the semi-Slav. And this position is actually covered in not just Grunfeld, Peter Svidler's course, but also by Sam Shankland and his course with Chessable on the semi-Slav. And here he just says, because I faced this particular move myself against the English Grandmaster John Ems, and Sam Shankland's recommendation is just develop the light square bishop at some point, and Black is fine.
I think the well-known antidote at some point as well is to trade off White's light square bishop, then trade off a knight and actually capture White's central pawn. Just be greedy, and it's completely fine for Black. But you do need to know a few things, and I think Jorden may be slightly worried that Praggnanandhaa is playing so quickly. He just plays a calm move, just moves his rook to the side, defending a pawn. So very tense opening, still a lot of pieces left, and Pragg maybe needing to win this one or wanting to win this one with White to qualify. Yeah, I think he's chosen a good opening to do that.
Cool. Now, let's take a look at the standings before this round. 14 out of 15 in the preliminaries. Who is safe, who is not safe? Liam Le, he was able to save that draw against Magnus Carlsen, and that means he is still in the lead by 3 points. Jorden van Foreest is safe to qualify on 24 points, and then 3 points after him, Dingley Ren should also be safe. Then we have 3 players now on 19 points. Duda, Report, and Hans Niemann. And then, look at that, 4 players on 18 points. David Anton currently the last player inside the quarterfinals. David Navarra is on the same score, but behind him on tie breaks, Vidit, 18 points, and Praggnanandhaa on 18 points. Also, Erik Hansen winning in the previous round. So did Hare Krishna. They now have 15 points. I mean, so many players can still qualify. Yeah, this is intense.
That's crazy. All the way down to 13th place. They're not out of it if Erik Hansen or Hare Krishna win their last 2 games.
Yeah.
Remember, Ty, our numbers guy, our stats guy, he mentioned 21 as maybe the magical number. 22 should secure qualification. 21. So those players, 8th to 11th place, they just need 1 more win out of the last 2 games. Ideally a bit more, but yeah, I mean, they will be keeping an eye maybe on the other games. It's at this point of the tournament now. They'll be keeping an eye on other results. They'll be taking risks. Oh, I can't wait to find out. And Praggnanandhaa, so unlucky with his tie breaks there in 11th place, but 1 win and he'll jump up.
And he's going to finish off against David Anton. Praggnanandhaa, another player fighting in that mix. But he's going to definitely want to win this one with the white pieces. He's going to have the black pieces in that final game. Wow. Yeah.
Well, he has a challenge ahead of him, but it's one that he will himself welcome. And I definitely like how this has been heating up. So the line that Jorden chose was a little bit unusual, and White reacting a very normal way, which is just to develop the rook, put it on an open line. And the big question for Black is how are they going to continue development, especially the light squared bishop. So still a lot of excitement left, and Well, talking about excitement, I also really like it when everyone at home joins in the fun and joins in the action. And Helene says that they're watching, and you can take a look at the selfie, and thanks us for the amazing chess broadcast. Thank you very much for your nice commentary.
And it's a dog.
It is a dog.
Very
we do
nice.
like dogs, don't we?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And Muzarek is COVID watching.
Oh, no.
Oh, well, you know, good things, bad things. We hope you get well soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
And if you too want to send us your questions, your thoughts and your selfies, remember in landscape mode is best, then you can always tweet us using the hashtag #ChessChamps.
Okay, and as you predicted, and as you mentioned, Sam Shankland in his chessable course advocated, Black's bishop has just come out to a decent square. It can get hit maybe by a pawn, by a knight later, but for now, this bishop is active. The bishop also has cleared a path for the rook in the corner to slide across to the nice open c-file, and very logical move. I'm expecting White's dark square bishop to come out. It's all about piece development, all about who can get active the quickest, and I expect Pragg, after a minute or two of thinking, to bring out his dark square bishop.
It was quite
choice of squares.
It was quite funny because when you said it can get hit, I was like, oh yeah, let's look at what the main move is. Main move is actually attacking that bishop right now.
With a pawn.
With the pawn. And that's really brave stuff because, you know, traditionally, you don't want to be doing those type of things, you know, weakening your own king. But here it seems to be this is the move of choice.
Yeah, I think Pragg might regret it if he doesn't get very, very aggressive shortly and start taking those risks. So throwing a pawn forward, even in front of your own king, attacking a bishop, would make a lot of sense with the tournament situation in mind.
Of course. And please don't forget our fundraiser for UNICEF, chess24.com/donate. We did have Leo Ajkic here in the studio. He has experience being in war as a child himself, the sound of war, the sirens ringing, being in bomb shelters, being a refugee, fleeing from war, the fear. Children in Ukraine is going through this now, and the only thing we can do to help is help the organizations that is in Ukraine and around Ukraine. So please help us, help UNICEF do their work, their life-saving work by donating. And we have crossed $60,000. So please just continue donating. It is helping. I actually heard the last number from UNICEF. They have shipped down 800 tons of supplies to the people and the refugees. So it is helping what we're doing. $63,000. And of course, the auction for David's chess lesson as well. Let's see.
It's up to $650, which is
Ooh.
incredible.
Yeah.
You know, thank you to everyone who is bidding. Thank you to everyone who's donating. I mean, really, it kind of warms my heart, and it just kind of also feels like the chess community are just clubbing together, and we are forming a nice community and just making sure that we can help everyone in the Ukraine. And yeah, I was also listening to Leo's story, and the story about the sirens really had an impact on me. I mean, I hadn't even thought about that. I mean, that's how kind of like privileged we are, that we're living in a comfortable place, and it's just by luck that we're here, and we are not the ones in somewhere else where things are bad.
Exactly, yeah. Oh, just the sound of those sirens, being a kid. I mean, you're supposed to watch children television, going to sleep, and then you have to run down to a bomb shelter. It's just wrong.
Yeah, it could be traumatizing, and that's why UNICEF, I mean, they're doing work not just with resources, but also psychological, physical help, and the kids, they really need it. Can't imagine what they're going through.
Yeah.
And, OK, meanwhile, still a long think from Praggnanandhaa. 3.5 minutes at this point, and still a very standard move from Black, so it's a bit surprising he's thinking so long.
He's feeling the nerves of the tournament situation?
It's the big, momentous occasion. It's this one moment as well. It's almost a must-win game for him because, OK, he's got another opportunity in the last round, but a win here and he'd be on the brink of qualifying. So also, it's a stylistic thing. I think it's not his style to throw pawns forward and get really ambitious this early in the game. He likes to kind of assert control first and then take his chances and then go on the offensive. But maybe now is the moment, and it's an early stage and maybe he just has to fight against his natural instincts and go for it. And, OK, I thought he was about to make a move just from his body language there, but while he thinks, while he scratches his head, maybe we can jump in, because this is a big moment. It's just after the opening. Both sides have castled, signifying the end of the opening. And now, to push or not to push, that is the question. Throw this pawn forward, attack the black bishop, force it back to a bad square. The bishop has to go back where it came from. The problem is, for white, you've weakened yourself. You've loosened. With this, he goes for it. What a player. So brave. And he just spent a couple of minutes blocking up that courage, and I think he's made the right decision. So you have loosened your king, as I mentioned. This pawn isn't ideal out there, but you can bring pieces to the defence of your king. You can cover a lot of squares. For example, you can jump forward with your bishop now. You can maybe jump into the centre with your knight later on. You still have a nice open line. You have a bit more space because your pawn in the centre cramps black's position. And still, yes, your king is open. The pawn wants to be further back, but black never really is able to organise an attack against it. So I think he's made a good decision, seizing space, kicking Jordan's pieces back, and showing his ambitions.
And I have to say, you always teach me, David and Jovanka, take center. Start the game by taking center. Where's the black pieces in the center here?
Yeah.
They're going to attack.
They're just dropping the part about taking center and going straight into attack?
Yeah, they're just... so you have two kind of approaches in chess. You can control the center. That is kind of like the classical way how people play it. Or you can kind of play in a little bit more modern way, which is simply you let your opponent take the center, and then what you do is you restrain that center from advancing, and then you use your pieces to attack. So what black's plan in this position is... first of all, he has to deal with white's initiative. And then, once he's dealt with that, he's going to probably try to undermine the centre and just try to open up the position. And finally, if he can't do that, then he has to... I'm trying to think of a way to actually attack the centre with the pieces, and in this particular one, it's actually very difficult to see a way to do it.
It's very difficult. I mean, on paper, black has a great position, right? You have this nice bishop, and actually, I think you mentioned the word modern, Jovanka. They call the Grunfeld one of the hyper-modern openings because it was a bit of a revolutionary one when it was first discovered, because you don't occupy the centre at all, you hit the centre from afar. So this bishop kind of cuts across on the dart squares. This knight controls the central pawn from afar, at least keeps an eye on it, and you wait until the right moment, and then you break forward with your pawn. So one pawn break would be here, pushing forward, undermining white's pride and joy, the central d-pawn, which is actually isolated. Another idea could be pushing forward the f-pawn, trying to break open white's structure on the king's side. And yeah, it's very much a hyper-modern type of approach. It's not classical thinking. It's not occupying the centre, not going for those general rules, but there are ideas behind black's Grunfeld setup. That's one reason I recommend Chessable. Peter Svidler, his Grunfeld, of course, he explains how you can fight for the centre by not necessarily controlling it with pawns. It's from afar with your bishops, with your knights. And talking about fighting for centre, white's bishop did step forward. This is actually black's most central pawn. Doesn't look impressive, but as I mentioned, it would love to step forward and challenge white in the middle of the board. And Pragg has prevented that by creating a pin on this diagonal, stopping any active play. So that's the fight right now. Black would love to undermine white's centre, but he's unable to do so. And, OK, the bishop kicked back, and the bishop just retreats. So, yeah, I was saying black on paper has a perfect position. This is an isolated pawn. These are doubled pawns. This pawn a bit weak as well. The white king's so weak. But look at black's pieces. They're cramped. This knight is completely dominated by pawns. This rook has to kind of be stuck defending the pawn in front of it, because white actually has an open line here. White has an open line here. White has a nice bishop pin. White is active. Black is passive.
Yeah.
And I'm expecting to see maybe black continue with that passivity, maybe rerouting the knight in front of the isolated pawn. That's good strategy as well. But who do you prefer here, Jovanka?
I like white's position, actually. And you forgot one other thing that black has on paper that's meant to be amazing, the bishop pair. The
bishop pair, yeah.
But I agree, it's just like there's not enough space. This big pawn that's sitting in the centre, that I know that Chessable author Jonathan Rowson of the 7 Deadly Chess Sins, he calls it Delroy, which is a name I've never liked. But he kind of says, you know, this pawn is just clamping down black's position, and it's not easy.
Yeah, and I think I'm not 100% sure on this, but when I read Jonathan Rowson's book, actually wow, okay, chaos on the board, we'll explain it in a moment, but when I read Rowson's book, he called this whole line Delroy's granite statue, because it's just so strong, and earlier White had supported it with another pawn, but coming back to this position, we both gasped a bit, because Black now is exploding things open. Now it's complete chaos. The evaluation bar hates this for Black. He's trying to, however, undermine the structure in front of White's king. And Ivanka, I think White should just ignore this.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, ignore that, consequence. And I'm thinking, put the bishop onto the centre square.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like this loses a pawn. It looks like it sacrifices a pawn because Black now can capture, supported by its bishop. But after bishop takes bishop, you lure out the Black king, and suddenly there are nasty checks. And look how open this king is, how lonely it is. No defenders around it. Checkmate's just coming already, I think.
Wow.
The Black king, once it steps back, the White knight can jump in. It looks scary, super scary.
Such a reckless move from Jorden because, you know, his position didn't demand, it wasn't ready for this activity. Instead, he needed to kind of grimace a little bit and go backwards and maneuver his pieces a little bit. This way too soon, and the consequences, he's weakened the dark squares. I just think put the bishop in the middle, and it's natural. Just looking at else, it's the only move to get the advantage.
Okay. So this is the move we're looking for, planting the bishop in the centre of the board. And as you mentioned, it's natural. That's for two reasons. One, if you leave the bishop here, then it might get locked in. The Black pawn will come and attack it. So you don't want your bishop locked in. And the other reason, and maybe the only other natural move, is to capture this pawn. But suddenly Black's attack, well, I would say attack quite generously here, but at least Black gets an active threat against this pawn. So, yeah, the most natural move in the position, the one, your first instinct, Ivanka, very, very strong. Planting the bishop in. Also, it's logical. Get rid of your opponent's only defender of the Black king, and it's going to be one-sided traffic. I think Jordan's king is going to be under heavy fire for the rest of the middle game if Pragg finds this key move, bishop to e5. And let's go back to the players. Is he going to find it? If he does, he might win this game and he might qualify for the knockouts.
Oh, yeah. Wow, what a moment for Praggnanandhaa in the tournament. Thinking for 2 minutes, this must be a great time to take that time to think.
Yeah, now is the time. It's a critical moment. And, you know, because Jorden has actually changed the nature of the position. Before, it was kind of dynamic, but manoeuvring, and it was still relatively quiet. Now it's chaos on the board, and you have to adapt to that shift. And, yeah, I just do think, I mean, the expression manna from heaven will probably be crossing Praggnanandhaa's mind. You'll be like, oh, my God, I've been just gifted this golden opportunity just to get Jorden on the back foot. And
are we looking for like that one move from Praggnanandhaa?
Everything else at least lets Jorden back in the game. Now is the moment. You've got to seize this opportunity. While Black's pieces are kind of distracted and on passive squares, you have to go and attack against the Black king, involving removing the Black bishop in front of it. So just trade off that Black bishop, the Black dark squared bishop, and yeah, big attack. And I mean, in order to become a grandmaster at, what was it, 12, 13 years old, like Pragg, you have to have good instincts. It's not necessarily about the moves, but it's about sensing the critical moments. And his instincts have paid off. He's thinking right now, but he needs to find this move.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you mentioned, Ivanka, it's one of the most natural moves, maybe one of the top 2 most natural moves.
Okay.
I think he's just trying to work out, maybe he's just shocked that Jordan's gone for this. Maybe he's trying to work out how Black can defend and what to do next. But I think within the next minute or 2, he's got to make a decision. And he's just got to go for it.
Yeah.
Everything else.
He's itching for it.
Yeah, you can see on the camera his spidey senses tingling.
Yeah, you can see that, you know, this felt like a really unnatural move. I must admit, David, when you were saying you've only got one chance, one shot, Eminem flashed into my mind.
Oh, he doesn't play it.
He doesn't play it.
He went for the other move I mentioned, also natural, trading a set of pawns, but suddenly the Black light squared bishop is allowed out. And
ooh, this one's more double-edged. This one's not so easy.
Is it still possible, though?
He's still got the advantage. I think he should maybe just continue with the same plan we highlighted. It's just less effective now because Black's light squared bishop is more active than it was, and the light squared bishop can actually help to defend the Black king, also pointing towards some pawns near the White king.
So why did Pragg go for this? What could be his plan? We can see on him he's shaking, that he is, you know, sensing that he is having an advantage.
I think maybe just a little bit of nerves. I think he would have gone, for sure he would have gone for the other move if he had 10, 15 minutes on his clock, if it was just round 1 of the tournament. but maybe he didn't. Maybe he thought he was losing a pawn in the process. We showed he wasn't, but maybe he just thought, OK, this is the safer option. Now, though, he needs to play with energy before the black pieces do start to come to life. Jordan's suddenly looking a bit more focused, a bit more happy. So, OK, I'm expecting the bishop to still plonk itself in the centre. Maybe white's knight can move.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only move that makes sense, because otherwise Jordan's gamble has paid off. I mean, if you just step forward passively with your king, well, then black benefited from this pawn trade. Instead, you need to shake the black position up a bit, and the only way to do that is by targeting the defenders and trade off dark square bishops. He's got to do it. The thing is, though, I'm a little bit concerned about the time, because he's only got 5 minutes, whereas Jorden has 10 minutes, and things are still to heat up even more. So he needs to leave himself a little margin for this, these complications.
And it's not just the fact that he's getting low on the clock, but he didn't find it the first time, this bishop move. He finds it the second time, though. Pragg, still reasserting his advantage. It's not as strong as it would have been, but it's still a strong move. And, the evaluation bar, I'm expecting to go slightly back more in white's favour, because I think that was a good move. And it's logical for 2 reasons. Eliminating the black dark-squared bishop as a defender. Black's king very airy, very open. But also, if your opponent has the bishop pair, trade one of those bishops off. And at least on the dark squares, black is vulnerable once his bishop is removed. So, Jorden needs to be really creative defensively here in order to even survive the next few moves. So, Pragg invested that time well, at least on this turn.
Yeah. Wow. Well, at least the excitement over the board is cheering everyone up. And, well, people at home are watching. And poor Jorden Aloni, who is sick, but they've got their blanket and they're watching us. So they're already feeling better. You're welcome. I mean, that's what I like to hear. And, well, we see bishop takes the pawn. So things are really, really heating
Computer
up.
hates that move by Jorden.
OK, that means it's a blunder.
Yeah, it looks pretty bad, and I'm not sure it loses on the spot, but strategically it's bad. I think white just gets a big attack. It's he trades bishops and brings his queen up. This is by far the most natural move for white, and I think also by far the strongest. And look at that black king. It's simply because black lacks defenders, and Jorden, I think he's underestimated his opponent's attacking resources. And wow, look at this.
Oh, wow.
Only 1 move to stay in the game. Any black king, this is check. Black's king attacked by the white queen. Any king move loses almost instantly. White will be able to bring knights into the game, into the attack, rooks into the attack. The king is just doomed. He has to throw a pawn in the way, but it's not obvious. You just basically give back the pawn you just grabbed for free. And he has to find this, Jorden. He'll calculate for a while, but black has to push his pawn forward to 2 squares to block this check. Pawn to e5. Ooh, do you think he was going to find it, Jovanka? I think the whole reason as well is that the black queen can use a diagonal to come and block some checks.
And because of this queen move, actually, I think he will find it, because the alternative looks quite bad. You know, if the black king steps back, then I was instinctively thinking of just pushing, going backwards with my queen to dive in and
Should we jump in? Let's keep an eye on the players as well while we investigate the move, because it's a key moment. Black has to push his pawn forward 2 squares to block this annoying check. So if he does this, pushes the pawn forward. Actually, just to show why the alternatives are bad, Jovanka, you mentioned this move. If the king goes
steps backwards or moves onto a light square, I thought, oh, you know, the queen can come and slide back. And also, I was thinking of John Nunn's little motto, which was like, lose pieces, drop off. And I was thinking of targeting that bishop.
Yeah, this piece is also loose. So, for example, if black stops the invasion of the white queen by bringing the king forward, you can just leap in with your knight. 2 deadly threats. Firstly, just winning a bishop, getting greedy. Secondly, more importantly, you're going to jump in with the queen, now supported by this knight, and that would end in checkmate in a couple of moves. So the king move would lose instantly. It would lose at least a bishop, maybe even to checkmate. So the king going back would lose. You have to block. But the reason I think maybe this isn't obvious for Jorden is because after rook takes pawn, there's still a problem. Still, the white queen is trying to break through to the king. And if you throw your queen in the way now, which is maybe the idea behind giving up this pawn, if the black queen jumps in the way, kind of reinforcing this diagonal, then white can just leap forward with the knight and hit the queen. Once the queen moves, for example, if it captures this knight, it looks like black's threatening checkmate, but no, white is the one to deliver checkmate first. rook takes pawn is a double check with the rook and queen. Double checks, you have to move your king no matter where you go. Queen to this square, the g7 square, kiss of death, checkmate. And this ends the game. So even if he finds the best move now, Jorden, which he's spending a long, long time on, even if he finds that he has to push this pawn in the way, he's still in big trouble.
And he has to be precise as well with his defence. I still think he will find it just because I think the alternatives are not that great.
The other moves just lose instantly, and it's very basic, actually.
Yeah. So I think he'll find it just through a process of elimination, and he'll just go, OK, fine, whatever, best. This is the one I don't maybe see an immediate loss to, because often that's the best principle when you're defending such a terrible position such as this. You're like, OK, here I spot the win for white, here I don't. Here I spot a win for white, but here maybe I'm still fighting, so you choose that one. It's very much a defensive form of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, these top players that we have in the field here, all 16 of them, if you give them a position where there's only one move to find, more often than not, they will find it. As Jovanka mentioned, it's process of elimination or just pure calculation. But yeah, this one, it's not easy. The psychological blow for Jorden, maybe now just the realization that he's in big trouble, that's maybe another hurdle for him to overcome. Also spending 4 minutes on the clock, time's nearly level again. And it's always easier to be on the attacking side when you're low on time than the defensive side. So looking good for Pragg, all of those factors.
Wow. And Jorden van Foreest on 24 points. He should be qualified for the quarterfinals, so this is not dramatic for him in that sense. Praggnanandhaa, if he wins this game, will be on 21 points with one more round to go. That will probably take him inside top 8, but so many players are currently fighting for qualification to the knockout. I think the bar is slightly over to Hans Niemann's side in his game against Hari Krishna. Erik Hansen, the chances are small for him, but winning the first game today, he is in contention. The bar roughly in the middle in his game against Duda. He needs to win this game, Erik Hansen. Vidit, he needs points, definitely. Bar slightly to the middle in his game against Ding. Magnus Carlsen currently fighting against Ju Wenjun. I think it's looking good for the world champion. Liam Le, looking quite good for him in his game against Navarra. Navarra is fighting to qualify. Richard Report, bar over to his side. That's good news for him. He will need some points to feel safe. And David Anton, he also needs points to qualify. Basically, in all the games, there are players fighting for qualification.
Yeah, and some big matchups. Kaya, you mentioned it's looking good for the world champion, but which world champion? Because
that's true.
It's the chess world champion against the women's world champion.
Yeah.
Big clash. But yeah, looking good for Magnus in that one.
Yeah, let's take a quick look just at the standings, just to remind everyone about the drama here. With this round and only one more round to go. Praggnanandhaa on 18 points outside top 8. But a win here will take him to 21 points. And if he is a little bit lucky with results in the other game, that's definitely going to take him inside top 8 for now with only one round to go. I mean, it's impossible to say who's going to qualify.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely not a betting man in general, but this type of field, when it's so bunched up so close, you can't make any bets because, I mean, it could all be decided by one move, one blunder. And, I mean, talking of blunders, Van Foreest definitely making mistakes, and he's frozen. He spent 6.5 minutes now on this move. He realises he's on the brink of defeat already, and it's only move 22.
And is it like, even if he finds that move?
He finds the best move.
Is it still not looking great?
Still not looking good at all for black. We showed one variation. Of course, Pragg was thinking in Van Foreest's time, which is a great tip, and he moves instantly, so he's up the speed. Pressure back on Van Foreest, and he can't throw his queen in the way of this diagonal, as we showed a few moments ago. If he blocks with the queen, I think that would lose on the spot. So does he have to move the black king? He does move the black king off the diagonal. But still, white's knights are flooding forward. And, OK, look at the
nice line, right? If the knight were to join the party, as we say.
Yeah, and I think anything could join the party here. Look at white's rook in the bottom corner as well. That piece, idle, not really participating. You could swing that piece across. That looks super strong. As I mentioned, also the white knight on the left side, that could centralise itself. Oof, so many tempting options.
I love the knight centralising itself. Do you know?
Look at Jorden, head in his hands. He thinks he's losing. He knows he's losing.
Yeah, he knows this has all gone totally wrong. I mean, the only thing that I can see, and it does require Praggnanandhaa to help him, is that the queen, the Black Queen, manages to magically transfer herself and plant herself on the square right next to the king. So that's the only move I can think of that can kind of...
Just shore up the defences.
Shore up defences, yeah, kind of keep the king in check.
Yeah, and the more I look at it, the more I think there's just too many tempting moves here for Pragg. I was mentioning this rook doing nothing, bring it to the party, invite it in, and after a rook trade here, I mean, you can capture with anything. You can capture with your rook to try and bring it into the game. You can capture with your knight, maybe even more tempting. And yeah, this pawn is pushing forward. This knight is flooding in. This looks good. You could also, as Jovanka mentioned, bring this knight in. Looks super strong as well.
And there's a threat.
Hinting at some checks. You're threatening to play rook takes rook and then jump in with a knight check, or even flip the order. This knight check looks deadly. Another tempting option, sorry, in this position, is to just maybe bring your queen across, using this idea I'm borrowing from you earlier, Jovanka, just trying to creep into the black king position. Praggnanandhaa probably has 3 or 4 winning moves, and sometimes that is when mistakes happen. You're just spoilt for choice, and you end up thinking too long, you get indecisive, and yeah, here perfectionism is not important. Just bring a piece into the game, and Praggnanandhaa should win. So let's go back to the players. Either the queen move, the knight move, or even a rook move, and he should win this game, but spoilt for choice?
He is spoilt for choice, but having said that, you know, he's been in this type of situation before, and I'm primarily thinking of his game against Magnus Carlsen, where he was given the opportunity to win the game, and he was ruthless.
Yeah, really ruthless, and when he beat me when he was 12 years old, he was also ruthless. So yeah, Praggnanandhaa on the brink here just needs to not let the time become his nemesis. Not let himself tick under to even 1 minute, because then he might get a bit nervous. He might normally, when I get nervous, I take safety first options, and that's not what this position requires. It requires ammunition. Keep pedaling on that bike, and okay, he plays that third option that I mentioned, swinging the queen across, and I like this as well because black's queen now cannot cover that magical g6 square that the white queen wants to use. The black queen tied down to her rook. Yeah,
and actually, it's a really devastating threat that Praggnanandhaa has, just to slide the queen 2 squares forward on the diagonal and give a check to the king.
Yeah, I must admit that wouldn't have been on my radar normally, but I stole the idea from you a few moves ago, and Praggnanandhaa clearly had done the same. He spotted that this was an idea 5 moves ago or 4 moves ago, and he's played it now, and it looks equally strong.
I actually borrowed it from Magnus yesterday in his game against Praggnanandhaa, actually.
That's instructive. I mean, top players, we just borrow ideas from everywhere, right? It's all about pattern recognition, and that Magnus game yesterday was different, but it's a similar idea, and that's how we kind of... We talk about creativity, but the more research you do, the more games you watch, the more creative you become, because you have a whole bunch of ideas in your mind. And, OK, black's king comes back to where it came from, just to stop white's queen sneaking in. At the very least now, Praggnanandhaa could just repeat the position once, bring his queen back where it came from as well, just gain 10 seconds on the clock and then choose another option. But, yeah, ideally, he needs to decide now, 1 minute, 40.
And, well, speaking of Magnus Carlsen, 3 points. He won his game against the women's world champion, Jorden. That's going to take Magnus to the same score as Liam Lear.
Oh, sorry.
What is this?
What a move.
Genius.
Just to have this move on your radar is incredible. We were looking at the king side. We were looking at the black king. He just picked up his rook in the corner and threw it up the board, sacrificing it in this angle. And that rook can just be captured. But his idea is that the black rook in the corner indirectly defends its other rook in the centre of the board. I mean, what a move. He's too good for this age. Yeah. What a player, Praggnanandhaa.
Mean, just to use all the sides of the board just like that, I mean, incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to show this.
Yeah, we definitely do.
Let's keep an eye on the players, because this move, rook takes a7, was not on our radar. We thought, OK, it's all about the black king. We were looking at bringing the rook this way, maybe bringing this knight or this knight into the game. He just thought, OK, this rook in the corner is overloaded. To even see this, to even cross your mind, this is genius. But rook takes pawn, wins a pawn now, because now this rook, as mentioned, indirectly defends the rook in the centre. If you take the white rook, looks like a free piece, but suddenly you lose your rook in the middle, and this is just game over. The queen and the rook will combine to deliver checkmate to the black king. And what else can black try? If you don't capture the white rook, it's simply going to take this pawn and break through on the 7th rank, equally deadly. If you capture white's rook in the center, then at the very least you can take this pawn, but now you can capture also this rook with your queen, with your knight, anything, and white is simply winning. Next move, the rook's going to take this pawn. It's just game over. And, okay, he chooses this way, but is this the lesser evil? I don't know. It just looks like checkmate coming. All white needs to do now is flick in a check, and this is going to be game over. The king defenseless. Praggnanandhaa about to win an amazing victory. Look at that evaluation bar, +7. Just give this check. You can maybe even bring... Okay, you can't bring your knight in. There is a threat of the rook coming down and harassing your king, so you need to be a bit quick. But I think this check, I mean, it's the first one that came to my mind. Diagonal checks with the queens and no hiding spot. For example, queen check, the king will move across, and very minimum, you just drop back. Now, knight check is coming. It's game over.
Wow.
Yeah.
16-year-old Praggnanandhaa, a month ago, he wrote history when he became the youngest player to win a game against Magnus Carlsen after he became world champion. This time, he is fighting for qualification in a super strong tournament and on his way. Playing genius.
Yeah, this is true genius. I mean, that rook move, I think even if I had half an hour, I'm not sure I would have even considered it. And it was super strong, as we see with the evaluation bar, just immediately winning on the spot.
Yeah, it's just very creative. I mean, like I said, you know, it's so easy just to be focused on where the action is and then just to kind of take that step back and find a different move, but with the still very much the same kind of point, but on a different side of the board, is just amazing. And following David's rule, diagonal checks with the queen are very difficult to parry. We learned that yesterday, and it was true.
Yeah, and it's true here because this check cannot be blocked by the black queen. If the black queen does slide across and offer a trade, then white's rook will actually give itself up with a nasty check, and the black king will be distracted, the black queen will fall. So this is just winning on the spot, and it's all about that full board vision. Okay, wow, okay, putting his queen in the corner, that's not what I expected. I thought he would just bring his rook back and stop this check, but Praggnanandhaa has this one covered. The check from the black rook looks like checkmate, but no, the knight drops back and it's guarded by its rook at the top of the board. I mean, Praggnanandhaa, he used all the angles. He used this a7 square on the left side. He's using the corner on this side. He's dropping his knight back to the bottom of the board. He's literally played on all 4 sides of the board in order to win this game. And it's simply a checkmate threat from the white queen and white rook over the next couple of moves. And what can black do? Black's rook is just, I mean, not participating anymore because white's rook guarding its knight at the bottom of the board.
You asked the question what to do. My solution is resign.
Yeah, I think we'll see 1 or 2 more moves from Jorden. He never really resigns, from my experience. OK, the black king trying to find a safe haven amongst its own pawns. Logical. But now, OK, there must be a killer blow. What is the finishing touch now for Pragg? 37 seconds.
And a super important win for Hans Niemann, taking him to, isn't it, 21 points, I think Hans Niemann will now have. It's looking good for the 18-year-old American to qualify for the knockout stage.
And, OK, some queen checks available to white, very least. Again, just because I'm a pragmatist, I would bring my queen back to the centre of the board. But, OK, he gives a check, allowing the black king to hide on the side. OK, what is his idea? Because now black threatens checkmate in 1. Rook takes knight will be checkmate. And whoa, OK, crazy tactics. Pragg is just showing off now with some nice geometry. And I think we're about to see a result because king takes rook now. It's a check. King takes rook would walk into a knight fork. White's knight will plant itself in the centre, checking the black king and winning the black queen. This is just one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen, let alone on the tour. It's just a masterpiece. It's just fireworks non-stop. Every move is a really crazy, unexpected blow.
It's a lesson in calculation, right, and tactical motifs. I mean, that rook check and the rook takes pawn, sacrificing material and all to get this particular knight fork. And we are definitely going to see it. And I think I saw a little mini fist pump from Praggnanandhaa.
Yeah, and we have a result. This knight fork winning the black queen ends in Van Foreest's resignation.
I guess it's applause.
Yeah, I mean...
to Praggnanandhaa.
Oof. Yeah.
We throw the coins.
Yeah.
And we say, well done, and it's incredible.